Thank you all for being here and attending this session. It's an honor and privilege here to be presenting at Dreamforce. So thank you, Salesforce, for giving us this opportunity. Hi, everyone. I'm Pranav Lal. I'm a technical architect at Slack. And joining me today is Jacob Gorin, who's a senior business systems analyst at Slack. We represent the go-to-market IT team. Me and Jacob have been at Slack for about 2.5 years, primarily doing integrations and a lot of system work. So why are we here today? We are here to talk about how you can automate and enhance and automate Salesforce CPQ approvals via Slack. So first questions that come to mind is why Salesforce CPQ and Slack? Well, with CPQ, if you have had the experience of implementing this tool, you know that users can easily close deals faster, and that really helps in the overall sales productivity. You're increasing the reps' close time, you're providing accurate information to your managers, and this really alleviates the overall deal hurdles that one faces. By getting the quote and deal data at one place, what you're providing to your business is a single source of truth. You got accurate reporting because you can all the code informations go through the CPQ tool. With the approval process, you add in the right levels of security. You're adding in the right amount of review process so that nothing can go to your sales customers without getting an eye on it. Now, with approval processes and Slack, what you're doing is you are really supercharging your approval process. With the collaboration power that Slack has, you can easily add collaborators to your deal. So you no longer have to worry about an email thread or DMs, which can be annoying. You can collaborate easily and overall increase the sales productivity. So what I'm going to show next is an actual end state of what this really looks like. So what I'll show next is an actual deal request by an account executive and how that goes through this process. So you can see how this really alleviates all of the hurdles one sees. So our account executive, Soshi, goes into CPQ and hits the Submit for Approval button. Upon clicking it, this is a post that's actually made in a Slack channel. It provides all the relevant details of that deal that one needs to see and approve. So the manager gets notified that he needs to approve it first. Now, for this specific deal, Soshi is looking to get a net 60 payment approval. His manager approves it, but someone from the RevRec team, Ronan, says, hey, Soshi, why net 60 instead of net 30? Can you add more color to this? Like, I can't make out from your approval notes. So Soshi quickly, within a few minutes, replies back and says, hi, Ronan. This is the reason I want to make it a net 60 and not a net 30 payment terms, and I would like to really move this forward. Ronan gives a thumbs up, and as he clicks the approve button, within minutes, Soshi gets notified that the code has been approved, and you're good to go to send this deal out to the customer. And this fast process really makes Soshi a very happy person. So, a little about Slack and what we do. So Slack is a leading collaboration hub that really makes people's working lives more pleasant, more productive, and definitely more simpler. We are a 1,200 plus company. We are 9 countries worldwide. We are headquartered here in the city. Some key facts about us. We have 8 million plus daily active users. 65% of the Fortune 500 companies already use us. And we have 8.8 million plus apps already installed. We cater to a diverse set of industries, including software, technology, retail, media, and professional services. So pretty much any industry out there has already been on Slack. So coming back to our main topic of CPQ, if you're looking to implement CPQ, and as a company, these are some of the key CPQ wins which we also achieved. So some of these wins look like streamlining of your sales order management process. It's quicker, faster. You can configure all of your products in Salesforce using the price book concept and the deal functionality which the CPQ provides. Definitely accurate reporting is one of the key results that you get after this. All your contracts, the automation of sending it, so no longer you have to manually upload your templates to DocuSign. It has a direct integration with DocuSign, so you can send the code pretty simply, quickly to your customers. And then renewals tracking is one of a key feature which you can implement using CPQ. And whatever you build is a scalable approval process, since most of it is click and configure. A lot of you can relate to this. And this is also something we experience in our pre and post CPQ world. The overall, if you see to the left, what the old process was, in the quotes process, it was we had to do it in G Sheets, Excel. The deal desk process had little transparency. AEs did not have the views as to what's going on with their deal. They had to constantly look at Salesforce. And similarly with notifications, there was not a lot of notifications happening, and the AEs would have to refresh Salesforce to see what the status is. And lastly, the auto forms. It was a manual process for us, where all our signed contracts were manually uploaded into G Drive and stored there. So as you can see, these processes are very manual. And if you're growing your organization, these can really lead to a lot of inefficiencies. So we solved all of these by implementing CPQ. Now, after you've implemented a CPQ tool and are looking to get that collaboration going and making it even supercharged, like I mentioned, these are some of the collaboration problems that we face, and I'm sure a lot of you would also see, is the AEs asking, hey, I submitted this, but who's going to approve this next? Who's the next approver? And these are fair questions, like how much time will it take for this deal to move forward? Will it go to finance? Will it go to RevRec? So how can we make this easier to see the overall deal status? And lastly, how does the notification part work? When would I get a notification that something's been approved or something's been rejected? So to solve all of these, what we say is obviously integration solutions with Slack. How can you go about doing this? So basically, there are 3 ways one can achieve this. First is the Apex solution, which involves writing an Apex trigger, an Apex class, and doing HTTP web service callouts. Second is the non-Apex solution, a config solution with an integration platform tool like Workato being one of them. So you can use any integration platforms, even MuleSoft does the job. And the third option is dedicated Salesforce and Slack integration platforms. Yeah, we have those, dedicated Salesforce and Slack integration platforms. So Troops.ai is one of them, and we have implemented Troops.ai at Slack ourselves. So Salesforce CPQ and Slack will definitely lead to a really good and happy experience in your approvals. So talking about the Apex solution, some of the pros are that you have complete control on the message display. You have control on the bot name, the formatting. Since it's your own Apex code, you have that control on what you can control or what you can display. Secondly is obviously you save costs. You don't need to invest in an integration platform tool, and thereby you save a lot of costs for the company. Some of the cons are that you would need to have technical resources, so you would need to have someone who does Apex coding and can make these callouts. And with that, obviously, if you have to make any net new changes, that would mean code deployment. So any further changes reduces the time to deliver. So those are some of the cons. And as I mentioned this before, how do you do this? So using an Apex class and an Apex trigger, you make a HTTP web service callout. And if you want to see how this is actually done, our site here, api.slack.com, has all the details with good examples on how you can make this call to your Slack instance and achieve the bot notifications working. So let's do a quick demo of how this would look when an AE actually submits it in Salesforce. So an AE goes, hits the submit for Slack approval button, hit OK. This is the actual post in Slack. They see with all the relevant details get populated. The approver goes into Salesforce, hits the code button, goes to the approval reject place, approves it. And then once it's approved, if you see, it comes back to Slack. And the good concept is what you can do is do threading. So instead of making a channel noisy, you can put it in a thread and it's approved. So that's a short demo there. Now I'd like to hand it over to Jacob, who will be walking through the remaining solutions and to conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Salesforce, for having us. So as he mentioned, one of the other solutions is to have a dedicated IPaaS platform. IPaaS is Integration Platform as a Service. What that really means is you don't need to have servers that you deploy yourself. You don't need to have DevOps. It's a go-to place where you can go and click and configure things. So what's great about this is you no longer have to have code deployments, coding, code coverage. You can go in and quickly click and configure and create a workflow very quickly. You can get up and running and change your message formatting or the look and feel in minutes to hours. Some of the cons that we may interact with in IPaaS layer are things that a Salesforce team may not be comfortable with. Integrations is kind of a dedicated, specialized thing. So you may need to bring the IPaaS layer onto your Slack channel and bring that bot into it so that it can conversate with. Lastly, Salesforce and Slack both have APIs that are quickly changing and evolving. You will be dependent on that IPaaS company to make sure that they're using the newest ones or deploying quickly such that you can use the newest formats. So this is a fake deal, but to highlight what you're looking at is you have a message that will jump into channel, and depending on how transparent your company is, you can either have a public channel or a private channel, and you can aggregate all your data into one place and then thread it. So as you can see below, there was initially a message, but then 12 subsequent approvals that went through one after another so that the rest of the company can follow along on how things are progressing. On the bottom, you see that there's an approve or reject button. What Workato can provide is late binding, which means the clicking user in Slack can actually use the Salesforce user one-to-one and respect the approval workflows that are designed through the CPQ system. If they're not allowed to do it, they're not allowed to approve it. If they are, things are great. So as you can see, we can update back into Slack in the channel, check the thing, and the next approval flow will kick in, but the rest of the company can see the progress. Another option is using a dedicated platform, Slack and Salesforce. The one that we use today at Slack is Troops. It's one of the leading integrations for Slack and Salesforce. What is available is for self-service of creating alerts and reports so that anyone who can action off of the different elements in the objects. You can do opportunity management and have dedicated messaging when opportunities are out of sync, or if they're old, or closing dates are coming up. You can integrate with your Google platform, Google Calendar, so that if notes are not synced up, it'll ping you at the end of the day saying, please log your notes. And the best part of all is that it is self-service. You no longer need to have either a Salesforce resource or an integration resource. You can have your users jump straight in and configure it the way that they like. The way that we use So some of the pros and cons is similar to the IPaaS layer would be that it's click and configure. The end user can jump in and really action very quickly within a couple minutes. They can switch up the way that it feels. If one day they're feeling that it's not enough information, they can add more detail to the flow. Some of the things that we've been working with for Troops is to actually enable them to have more dynamic routing. So one of the things that it can't do today, for instance, is if a message comes in and you want it to route to an APAC channel or an EMEA channel, you'll actually have to have two separate workflows today. We're also working with them to have better APIs to programmatically manage the alerts and reports without going through the UI. Today at Slack, the way that we use it is we have a dedicated channel so that people who are actually approving or rejecting quotes can get a report that's sent in directly and to see if they're on a list if they forgot what, when they got emailed or if they got Slack messaged. So on the left, you can see here that a report that is already pre-configured in Salesforce drops in a message and they can see whether they're on it or not. On the right, you can see the UI where you can quickly configure when you want the message to be dropped in, what time of day, what the report is, and how many different columns within the report should be visible to the end user. So to summarize, there are three main ways to interact with Slack and Salesforce. First, you can directly call the Salesforce APIs. directly through Slack APIs, directly through Salesforce. You can use a dedicated platform like Workato, or like Troops, or you can use an IPaaS layer like Workato. Each one of those solutions are great, and they have their own benefits that will help you move quickly with interacting with the Salesforce CPQ and Slack. So thank you very much for coming. If you have any questions for Pranav or myself, please feel free to ask. Thank you.